Take two.
This meeting is being recorded. Okay, very good. Hey, thanks. Are we good? Okay.
All right, good.
Try to speak up because he can't hear you very well.
Is there a mic or something?
This is my good one.
Because people tell me I'm too loud off most of the time. So
Okay, go ahead and just talk normal.
just talk normal.
Just talk normal. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll quickly kind of go over that first little bit again since the recording started. The Meshtastic. We'll get more on what Meshtastic is, but Meshtastic for North America resides on the 900 megahertz band. The 900 megahertz band is 902 megahertz to 928 megahertz. Amateur radio operators are primary users of that, but we do share it with non-licensed devices. I mentioned that because these are non-licensed devices. So that's one reason why this is kind of an important conversation to have about this. So in order to get on the 900 megahertz, if you're an amateur radio operator itself, you'll end up getting something like a Motorola or a Harris or a Kenwood or whatever commercial radio that you want to. It's good to do a little bit of research before you buy. There's a lot of little caveats. Like, for example, on this Motorola radio that I have here, this is the 7580. But if you get the 7580E, you're going to have problems. You can't hack it. they've kind of cotton wise to amateur radio waves. But if you get the 7580, basically for the Motorola's, which I'm most familiar with, you're doing hexadecimal editing. You bring the code plug up, you do the things, you do a little hex editing, and then boom, you can load it in. Usually what the case happens here is that since we know that 900 megahertz is full of a whole bunch of unlicensed stuff, Meshtastic being one of these things now, amateur radio sticks to the edges. So you will notice that, for example, we do have a 900 megahertz repeater up on Butterfield. It's on 927.1125 megahertz. This is what you tune to listen to. But you're transmitting on 902.1125. So on 900 megahertz, all repeaters are a 25 megahertz split, not like a 5 megahertz split on 77 meters or 600 that we are used to on the 2 meter. And that makes sure that we kind of stay on the edges because most of the unlicensed stuff always resides in the middle anyway. And as we're hacking commercial radios that weren't necessarily built for amateur radio use, it's better to gently push them into the band than push them right into where they probably really aren't really supposed to be used anyway.
So these are made for bands like a little higher, a little lower, something like that. And then we're just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, these radios generally, if they're factory, it's like there's a section of 800 megahertz that they use, and there's a higher section of 900 megahertz that they use. It kind of just depends on the police, the fire, whatever department is actually buying and using these kind of things. So I think that kind of covers the 900 megahertz band. Is there any questions on?
And there's nothing for ham operators, nothing exclusive with like we're sharing every single.
Yeah, as far as 900 megahertz go, or the 33 centimeter band, yeah, we are completely sharing that band. It's just that we're primary. Okay. Since we're primary, we're not limited to 1 watt.
Oh yeah, we get what, 5 watts or something?
Well, 1500 or whatever our.
It's not 1500.
Well, I have yet to see a 1500. Well, I mean on HF we can go 1500, right?
Balfing sells a 1500 watt HT.
I mean, I know of a mobile unit can do 100 watts.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason the limit was
police and fire guys, they're just nuts. They want so much power. They want to drill through the mountain they're trying to get over because 900 megahertz is very line of sight.
Maybe is it more limited because these are spread spectrum or something? Maybe the one that's lower. Depending on the mode you're on, I could have sworn it's seen.
Well, don't worry, we're gonna get there.
Sorry,
we're gonna get there. I'm just talking about 900 megahertz in general.
So in general, we can 1500, I guess. Right? FM or something.
In theory.
In theory.
I mean, I don't want to see a 1500 watt, 900 megahertz radio myself, but in theory,
Okay.
in theory that would happen. Okay, so a lot of questions that I always get whenever I'm doing my Meshtastic presentations is why? Why are we doing Meshtastic? Since it's mostly unlicensed stuff anyway. Well, for me, there's a couple of reasons why I like it. There's always this eternal question with anything that I do. Is this a toy or is this actually useful? The one thing I've noticed about Meshtastic is this community is crazy. There's been so much development in this space, so many improvements. Just in the last year, there's been so much improvement that it's hard to ignore what Meshtastic is doing and what the community is doing for Meshtastic. 2 years ago, I would have said this is a toy. Now I'm kind of like, I don't know, we're getting kind of really useful now. So there's that. The other part of this is that I always try to do pace programming for just about everything I do. I'm about to do a road trip. I did pace programming for routes that I'm taking to and from where we're going. So part of my communications pace programming, my primary plan is, hey, okay, internet's gone, cell towers are down, pulling my Starlink out, connecting my phone as Wi-Fi calling, and that's my primary way that I figure I'm going to get in and out. If that doesn't work, hey, I got amateur radio, 2 meter, 70 centimeter, et cetera. In C for contingent, I've had a couple of things that's changed from time to time. Right now it's Meshtastic. There's enough interesting things there that this is now part of my pace plan. And E has always been HF, because in the end, you can blast the whole world if you have to and just say, hey, we need help in Salt Lake City. So that's kind of why I'm in the Meshtastic. I also just love all things RF. I don't care if it's amateur radio or CV or GMRS or whatever. It's all fun to me. So, and it's all interesting. So we've been dancing around this already. So what is Meshtastic? Well, I've already kind of hinted at this, but it's basically a community-driven and open source project. Anyone in the community, if you know how to code and you have an idea, you can submit your ideas. You can start actively coding, submit stuff in. There's been a lot of things that have been added to Meshtastic just because someone said, hey, I'm really good at developing a UI, and we want these devices to have a good UI. So there's been a lot of really impressive improvement because they're not just kind of capping it down and saying, oh no, it's only John that can approve the code changes. The Meshtastic nodes or devices or nodes, you'll hear this exchange both ways. Basically, it's just a LoRa radio in the end. And I'm going to open up one of the giveaways here, guys. So. But sorry for those on Zoom, you're probably not going to see this. But this, for example, is your LoRa radio. It's absolutely teeny. And there's actually one smaller than this. There's actually ones without even a display, so that if you're really trying to set up a power conscious kind of system, you can make something last for quite some time. Oop.
Yep. And that's a 4-band radio too, right? Well, if you have GPS.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yep. The primary reason for Meshtastic is doing text messaging over the LoRa radios. It can also do GPS data. It can do simple sensor data. There's lots of things that this is already starting to expand into and go into. I know of some guy who is making a dog tracer to sit on the dog's collar, and as long as he's within the Meshtastic mesh network, he can always see exactly where his dog is because it's got a GPS on it. So there's been lots of things there. As I already kind of pointed out, this operates in default mode. It operates in unlicensed mode. And here in North America, it's the 915 or 902 to 928 megahertz band. depending on the region you're in, like if I remember right, I think like the UK, for example, they use 433. That's their shared band. And, so it depends on the region. But whenever you buy a LoRa device here in North America, make sure it supports 900 megahertz. Also, I want to call attention to the pictures on top here because, sorry, maybe this doesn't work.
Not on televisions.
What about the red one? No? Okay, fine. So much for bringing the fancy laser pointer.
Can you bring a cursor up? Because they wouldn't see that on Zoom anyway.
Yeah. Well, let's just start on the pictures on the top. So from left to right, these are just example configurations that you could do for Meshtastic, for example. So, here we got two phones that are Bluetooth connected to their LoRa radios, and that's exactly what you would do with something like this. You could Bluetooth to it. This little device, though, if you notice, has a little teeny itsy bitsy little coil there. That's Wi-Fi. So this device can actually connect to your Wi-Fi, and then you don't even have to use your phone. You could just connect to it over your network and do messages and stuff. But the nice thing is that if you do hook this up to a computer, you don't have to do Bluetooth. You can use the Wi-Fi if it's available, or you can just USB connect to it. The software will allow you just to connect to that device that way. So you don't have to worry about Bluetooth or anything if you don't want to. Another kind of configuration, this is more typical, is that, okay, here's your two phones. You got a whole bunch of LoRa devices somewhere in the middle. And they basically just form a mesh. And this guy types a message, and it goes and propagates through the mesh until it gets to the other guy. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with Meshtastic is it uses a hop-based system. The default value is 3 hops. You can go as high as 7 hops on Meshtastic. There's pluses and minuses to increasing your hops. One is, of course, saturating the network a little bit more if you have more hops than you need to. So sometimes it's kind of a balancing act, and sometimes it's just like, the heck with it. I'm going to just do 7 hops, and who cares? So, for example, let's say we had our Meshtastic software set for 2 hops, and this guy sends a message. Well, so that's going to say 2 hops. That's going to say 1 hop. That's going to say 0 hops. But that doesn't matter because that made it to the phone, and so he gets the messages. But if it goes this route, that's 2, that's 1, that's 0. It's going to stop at that point. So if it didn't get to an intended device, it's just not going to make it. By default, there's kind of a general chat room. It's like if you remember the old IRC days, it's kind of like that. You just kind of type and it just floods everybody. But you can do direct messaging as well. So if I know Paul's node name, I can just send a message directly to him, and we can have a little private conversation if we want. Another option that you have with Meshtastic is, like Arden, you can use the internet as a tunnel. And so you can actually connect multiple mesh networks together to actually make a bigger network if you want. Now, the Intermountain Mesh group here in Utah, they use, we'll get a little bit more into this, so if you're lost with something I say here, don't worry, we're going to swing back around. But they use frequency slot 51, and they do use the internet tunnel, and we actually have Salt Lake. We got basically from Ogden down to Provo on one mesh. We have an internet tunnel that takes us up into like the Malad area, and then over to Twin Falls, and then over to Boise. So we have all these little groups of mesh there. And so in theory, we've now linked this whole Intermountain area together.
Is it all mesh from Ogden, Provo? No tunnels? Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
There's Wi-Fi. It's telnetted up to Idaho, right?
Yeah. When it's actually doing that, then yes, it's actually using the MQTT, or that's what they call the actual internet tunnel. So that means there's something on the Idaho side and there's something on our side that's actually linked together, and then we'll broadcast those messages. Now there's a bunch of settings in Meshtastic, and we're not going to get into the settings tonight. That might be a deeper dive later if there's any interest. But there are settings that you can actually tell your node, ignore the MQTT or ignore all the internet stuff. I just want the local stuff. There's lots of different settings to do that. So you don't have to worry if you're on a mesh that has that internet tunneling and you're not really particularly interested in that, you can kind of just tell your node to ignore that. I think I pretty much covered everything there. Any questions so far?
I looked it up, it's 36 dB or 4 watts, ERP is the limit, part 15 for amps in this band.
Yes, but these devices don't go over 30 dB. So it's basically 1 watt. And most of those devices don't even do that. The funny thing is that the Meshtastic software, there actually is a setting on, how many dB do you want to do? And that slider does nothing for 90% of the devices. So you can set it to 30, but if it's a 22 dBm device, it's a 32 dBm device, no matter what you set the software to.
I know it does nothing, but they sell these things which are really cheap, which will give you like a couple watts.
But your antenna could,
Well,
And then-
we'll get into that.
Sorry.
We'll get into that. In unlicensed mode, that's technically a no-no. I'm just going to put it that way. But anyway, so speaking of licensed versus unlicensed, since that's a question I get a lot of. Sorry, I saw your hand.
Yeah, the question I had, as you were talking in that last little bit there, was that using the internet?
Yep.
But also using cell towers?
No, just the internet. It's like an internet bridge, just like Arden, how it does like a little internet tunnel. It's kind of the same principle on that. So in the settings, yes, there are the differences. Yes, you can go to license mode or you can keep it in license mode. For the most part, it all works the same. There are obviously differences when you go into license mode. The first of being that you can use whatever power you want to use. If you got an amplifier, if you want to use a Yagi, all that kind of stuff, and you don't want to have to worry about keeping it under 1 watt, then going into license mode will give you that ability to bump it up and go up. However, it does disable the encryption, and obviously you can only talk to other license mode nodes that are out there. The problem here in the Salt Lake Valley is there's not very many nodes that are in the licensed mode. Most everybody here in the Salt Lake Valley does pretty much stick to the unlicensed portion of it, even though we have a fair number of hams that are doing it.
So I got a question. So the mesh between Provo and Ogden, that's not the channel 51 ham?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
But
It's in unlicensed mode.
Unlicensed mode?
It's in unlicensed mode
Okay.
because we have a number of people on there that aren't hams. Now, the one thing about frequency slot 51 people is they actually have a weekly net. And actually, they actually say the reason for this net is to connect unlicensed users to amateur radio operators so that if they need help to get messaging out, this is a net to kind of prove that connectivity is working.
All right.
So that's kind of cool that they've thought about that and they've actually integrated that into that frequency slot 51 that they're using. The other thing about license mode is it's pretty much a requirement to have your call sign as part of the long name. Inside of Meshtastic, there's a long name and a short name. Not much to really go into there. The short name is only 4 characters long. The long name, depending on the software you use, can be several different varying lengths. Like iOS, they have a more limited number of characters you can use and whatnot. But you have to have your call sign in there. The reason why you have to have your call sign in there is because when you're in license mode, every 10 minutes it is transmitting out your identification. Other than that, everything else that we talk about everything will be basically the same. So the only real difference is whether or not you want to start a license mode network and then go nuts with 50-watt amplifiers, go for it. That could be kind of interesting. It'd be kind of fun. All right, so let's go into a little bit more detail on Meshtastic. I didn't time myself. I have no idea how long this is going to go. So Meshtastic is a chirp spread spectrum, or sometimes it's called an acoustic spread spectrum signal. I've actually got a little bit more information on the next slide, so let's not get too lost in that now. Typically, whenever you buy devices, whatever they are, they're somewhere between 20 and 22 dBm, so about 100 to 160 milliwatts. There are actually, believe it or not, based on different settings that you do in there, there's some things you can do to tweak how fast or slow it is. You know, it kind of depends on a lot of different things, but you know, for example, they have like long fast, medium fast, short turbo. They have all these kind of short names that you can click on. You can also get into the weeds and you can actually just make up your own thing. But remember, whatever you do, everyone else on the network has to be the same. So one of the nice thing about some of these very easy just to click on things is that, you know, someone says, oh, we're on medium fast. Okay, fine, boom. I'm on medium fast. Now I'm speaking the same language as everyone else.
Might want to mention why you want to use the slow mode.
Distance, yeah. If you're in a fairly spread out area and you don't have a lot of nodes in between things, you might want to use more of a long fast or even a long slow for that matter, to make sure that your signal does get out, that someone actually hears it and can grab it and repeat it from there. And when I say long slow, I mean long slow. It does take a little bit of time to get a message out.
We were doing that last year and it was definitely slow, but it worked. Like we had just a handful of people that were really spread out over the valley, but you know, even with these really low power levels, we were making connections.
Yep. The nice thing is that, like, there's been a couple of ham conventions, and they actually experimented by using the short turbo, and they were just, I mean, messages were just flying, and everyone was just having a blast doing that kind of thing. So there are also some other settings, which again we won't get too far into the weeds for, to kind of define the role of your Meshtastic device. So like for example, we're going to see client, client base, client mute, for example, fairly regularly. Client base is actually brand new. This is a new feature that's been part of the Meshtastic 2.7 line. The nice thing about that is you can set up favorites, and it tries to prioritize traffic to your favorites locations. So this is really good. Client base is really great. If you decide you want to put, like, let's say a solar powered thing up on your roof and you're down and your ham shack's in the basement, then you might want to make those two favorites so that it will always get the signal, because in the basement, you're probably not going to get most of the messages, but you can use the one on your roof to make sure you get the messages. Usually, generally, the rule of thumb when you're looking at the Meshtastic roles is client is like a good role for something that's going to be on all the time. You're going to put it on your house. You're going to put it on a fence, or or up in a tree. It's something that you're planning on letting it just be on 24/7 all the time. You're almost going to forget that it even exists. Then you want that on client. And client basically just means it's going to receive whatever traffic it hears, and it's going to then forward it on. Client mute, on the other hand, is a really good role if you just have something like this, because I might have it turned off 90% of the time. So when you do have it turned on, you don't want this to then start rebroadcasting traffic and make the network reliant on thinking that this is something it can use. If you use client mute, then it knows automatically you're not going to rebroadcast anything, but it will listen and you can still see all the messages and you can still send messages. It's just not going to retransmit traffic that is already in the area. Router, that one's a little bit, stay away from router. Router is really good if you really are actually in a position that you can really help the network out. Routers will always take top priority. They will suck that packet and they will send it to other routers. So if we had a router up on Ensign Peak, we had another router on Traverse Ridge, for example, that might be pretty good, because then someone in the avenues might hit and might go up to, and then it gets a free valley hop down to the next one and can make his messages go further with the hop, whatever hop count he has his Meshtastic being set to. Common overall uses that I've seen so far on Meshtastic have been, in outdoor adventures like hiking, whatever. I've seen families using this kind of thing for camping. I spend a lot of time in the Utah West Desert, and I've actually started using this. I usually leave one up on my car, and I give one to my wife, and I have one. So I have some friends, I'll give them some devices. And that way, because where I go in the Utah West Desert, I look down and it says no cell phone signal, and I go, yay, I won. Because that's kind of my goal, is to kind of get out and get away from work and everything else. So this now becomes the way that everyone can kind of say, hey, I'm hungry. You want to have lunch? Okay, I'll meet you back at the car, or whatever. Oops, I slipped and I'm at my ankles down a well. There's lots of little things you can kind of put in there. I've seen people planning on using emergency communications, though I haven't actually heard of Meshtastic actually being used in an actual emergency yet. Waiting to see if that ever happens. We'll see. The other thing that I love this is my BlackBerry throwback. I love this thing. The nice thing about this is that I can leave it in default mode. And I got a business trip this next week, and this is coming with me, because as soon as I get to Phoenix, I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to be on the default thing, and I'm going to say, hey, everybody, I'm here for the week. Tell me some places to eat. And I am going to get a bunch of answers. I can tell you that. I will get a bunch of answers. So this has been really good for me for travel. So that if you don't travel, maybe that's not a thing for you, but work makes me. So the first time I did it, I kind of thought, is this going to work? And the next thing I know, I had like 20 guys replying to me saying, oh no, you got to try this. Oh, anyway, so it worked out really pretty good. All right, as I promised, we get a little bit more into the chirp spread spectrum. So what we've done is we've set an SDR up. We've listened to the frequency. We've zoomed in on a little bit of it, and we've looked, and we're seeing exactly what is actually going on with Meshtastic. So as it's a spread spectrum, whatever mode you pick, whether it's long, slow, or whether or not it's turbo fast, will kind of depend on how much bandwidth you're going to end up using. But for the most part, most of the settings are 250 kilohertz. So it's just a matter of what that signal is doing within that 250 kilohertz. Now, the nice thing is that the differences of the up versus the downslope are a lot of payload delivery versus like a control saying like, oh, I'm done, or I need to send you something else, or that kind of thing. So that's kind of more of a close-up of exactly how that's actually working. And fortunately for amateur radio, we can use spread spectrum on 2 meters and higher. We just can't use it on HF. As I was saying about the bandwidth, here's some of the examples here. So like, for example, the default is long fast, and you're always on frequency slot 20. That is the default setting. If you do a factory reset or you buy a brand new one of these devices and upgrade the firmware, that's exactly where it's going to start. Now on this website here, the meshtastic.org, all the documents there are really good, and they update as soon as new features are done. So it's a really good resource. But one of the things that it does here is it does kind of show you the bandwidth that you can get for different settings. It's like this, the short range turbo, 500 kilohertz, or this long range moderate, or long slow, 125 kilohertz. So you can, a lot of that speed is also variant on how much of that bandwidth you can actually have and use. Which also affects how fast the messages will go. You'll notice here in this column here, you got a data rate. And again, like I said, you can get in there and you can customize, make your own little setting. Then, yep.
Is bandwidth sort of conditional to the amount of data that you're sending? I'm trying to. I mean, what's the difference between 125 kilohertz and 500 kilohertz? What am I buying with the
speed?
With the
just mainly speed. How
So
fast,
that's a function of speed?
how fast is your message going to get out? So like last year we were doing some testing with Meshtastic and we did long slow, and I would just say hi,
Okay.
acknowledged.
Well, I thought that was data rate. That had nothing to do with bandwidth.
Well, but the more bandwidth you have, the faster the data rate is.
Now I'm looking at it. Yeah, okay.
I mean, look at the top two, you can see the only difference is the bandwidth is double and the data rate is basically double, right? Or exactly double.
Right.
And the link budget will go down with increased bandwidth.
Right.
Because it's hearing more noise to hear that wide bandwidth.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
It's the same advantage CW has over sideband on HF. You know, you're taking the same amount of power and a tiny little bandwidth. It can, you know, it's approximately a 13 dB advantage over sideband. So,
Oh, and also just wanted to mention this. I forgot to put the slide in. But when you go to this meshtastic.org, you go to this the very first one, which is radio settings. One of the things they have in there is a frequency calculator, for lack of a better term. So you can say, hey, I'm going to use long fast. I want to use frequency slot 60. And then we'll come back and actually say, oh, that's going to be 900 and something megahertz. So then you can kind of use that and kind of say, all right, am I stepping on anything I know of? Really, the general rule is that you stay away from the edges, because that's where the amateur radio operators are going to just overpower you anyway. I mean, if I pick this up and start transmitting on 4 watts, it's gonna drown out anything that Meshtastic is doing on that same frequency anyway. So just stay towards the middle, you'll be fine. I'm going to take a slight deviation. So recently there has been a lot of chatter about Mesh Core, and there's been a lot of excitement around Mesh Core. But Mesh Core is not everything that it's cracked up to be. Everyone gets all super excited about the newest shiny toy. So I thought I would just take a minute here to do a little, let's get off topic a little bit. Let's talk about Mesh Core. Mesh Core is fairly new in the space. It's kind of basically trying to be Meshtastic, except for that they are focusing solely on the text message. That's it. That's all that's important to them. No GPS, no internet tunnels, none of those features that you're going to get used to on Meshtastic will exist on Mesh Core. The app that you install and everything is much more simple. Now, some of that is probably because it's brand new. Some of that might change over the years, who knows. The one thing that I saw as a positive on the Mesh Core is that it does have an ability to learn the mesh network itself. So again, let's say me and Paul are having a private conversation back and forth. Mesh Core would learn the best route for our message to go back and forth and use that route. Where Meshtastic is always just going to go, I have a message for somebody, and then it's just going to go through.
is it stuck with that, or can it self-heal like Meshtastic?
So Mesh Core does self-heal. So if Dan's node goes down, and we were highly reliant on that, it will then revert back to the broadcast everywhere until it finds a path to you again, and then it would map that new route. So it does do a level of self-healing. Now, I don't know how well it does because there isn't very many Mesh Core people here in Utah. Mesh Core has mainly been played with in Boston and California, of course, because California is always on board with every single new shiny toy. And I think there's a couple of towns down in Texas that have been kind of playing with it, but
England is really the biggest.
yeah, and mainly because Mesh Core is being programmed and focused in Europe in general anyway. So yeah.
Is this still all LoRa based, same hardware?
Yes. Yeah. It's just that you'd be a Mesh Core software and you have a Mesh Core firmware for your LoRa device. But there's been a lot of questions on it, so I just wanted to kind of put that slide in there just so everyone kind of knows, okay, that's what they're doing. Now, like I said, it's new. So in a few years, we'll see what happens. But for now, a lot of people are sticking with Meshtastic because of the additional features like GPS.
But there's something to say about being very, very simple for
Yep.
MCOMs.
Yep.
The message routing is nice because you could potentially have like longer hop counts.
If you're doing a lot of direct messages between people, yes. But if you're just using that general channel all the time and just saying hello, it doesn't really, that actually doesn't really give you any real advantage.
That's true.
Because if I'm just on the main channel and I say, hey, Vern, how's it going? And I'm not actually talking to Vern's node specifically, then, you know, it's not going to route to him faster. It doesn't know that I really want to just talk to Vern's node. So it sounds good, but I myself have done very little direct messaging. Most of the stuff that I've done has just been on the open channel.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, yeah, it sounds like they got a very specific case. They kind of optimize it for, but maybe.
And they might change. And the funny thing is Meshtastic moves so quickly. There's been so much development change in just the last year alone. It's very possible that someone might see some of this and kind of go, you know, we could maybe adopt some of this in the Meshtastic.
Yeah.
So, you know, I kind of dislike what Meshtastic in general has been doing. So yeah, I dabbled a little bit into it, and then I just kind of went, okay. I mean, there's like 5 other people that I could see from my house that were actually using Mesh Core. I'm like, okay, just give me your cell phone number. I'll give you a call. All right, so getting into some of the hardware. Now, this is another field that has totally been exploding in the Meshtastic / Mesh Core / ATAC community. There's been a lot of new devices coming out. So like tonight, I have 2 of these to give away as little door prizes when we get to that part, which is this little device right here. This one does have Wi-Fi capability. It's got a little Wi-Fi connector there. So you can connect it to your Wi-Fi, or you can do Bluetooth, or you can just connect to it with a USB cable. All that kind of stuff. It's got a nice little screen on it. The nice thing about these little Heltec boards is that you'll notice there's a whole bunch of little extra parts in there. The reason why is because now you can develop your own little circuits, your own sensors, and then you can have it spit the information into the Meshtastic world, aka update maybe a node that you have in your basement or whatever, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a little bit, not just a radio, but it is a little bit of a development board. So I'm giving whoever wins these things maybe a little more of a toy to play with than just loading Meshtastic and typing hello world. One of the newer devices coming out here is this brown one here in the middle. This is specifically kind of built for backpackers. This thing actually is a solar panel. And their intent is you just kind of clip it to your backpack or whatever, and it just, the sun will keep the battery charged and keep it going, and you can still, be connecting to your campsite or whatever and that kind of thing. Over on the far left, though, I don't know if they are the best Meshtastic devices. I'm biased. I get biased pretty quick. I love my throwback to BlackBerry. So the Lily Go has a number of really good products. They all work really pretty good. They're all pretty stable. But the other thing that I really like are what's known as the whiz blocks or the racks, because they're very modular. You can pretty much decide how you want to build your LoRa radio and what features you want and what features you don't want, and you can kind of piece it all together. And then there's just more and more of these kind of like all-in-one kind of solutions where you just buy it, get it. Maybe you update the firmware to the newest version or something, but you're just good to go. So there's a lot of things out there that you can decide how much playing you want to do. Now, I will tell you, this is called the T-Deck. You'll notice this is a 3D printed case. So, when you get this, it is just the board and the keyboard. It's very raw. And so, suddenly you find yourself with a battery and everything else. I found a 3D print thing, and my son's got a 3D printer, and I had him print this up so I could have it in a nice little case. So even though this looks kind of nice, just beware, it doesn't come with a case. But, that means you can get creative, right? You can do whatever you
Hillary
want.
Clinton, I think, has some spare cases. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, maybe.
You say everything.
So the other interesting thing here is that I've noticed is in the last year or so, this company Spec 5 They have been taking these LoRa radios and they've been integrating them with other devices. So for example, the radio you're seeing over on the far left is an FRS radio meant for family radio use, but that second antenna is a Meshtastic. So now suddenly you have an FRS radio with GPS and text messaging. I just thought that was kind of cool that someone's now merging these things together, because now the sky's the limit for me in my head, because now it's like, okay, what else can we merge this with, and what else can we have fun with? The other thing, they do sell just individual units themselves. A lot of these kind of things that they kind of sell are like, hey, buy a couple of these, put them around the campsite you're at, and just build your mesh at the campsite. And give other units to family members. Stay connected, even though you have no other connectivity like wherever you are. So it's just nice to see like an actual company jumping on board and really kind of thinking outside the box and putting this stuff into play.
So before you go, so would you like hook your telephone to that to do the actual text messaging? And that would be like the repeater site, right? Or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Put it up in a tree and then everybody.
As long as you can reach it Bluetooth, then yeah. So if
Bluetooth or Wi-Fi.
Or Wi-Fi, yeah.
Okay.
So as long as that signal is, I mean, I have a solar node up on my house, which I got a picture here. We'll get to it. But I got a solar node in my house, and I can use my phone and Bluetooth connect to it from my basement. It's pushing the limit of Bluetooth, but I can do it. I can actually get in there and see messages and type messages and everything. So Bluetooth has a little bit more of a range than, well, I use the Wiz block, and I actually got a nicer Bluetooth antenna attached to that. So that's kind of part of that. That's not just one of the default Bluetooth antennas. But again, that's the fun of really being able to dive into the woods and kind of play with this stuff. All right, great. That's the hardware, which, by the way, I have two examples of some of the stuff that I use on a fairly regular basis. So you guys can come up with and look at these if you want. But now let's look a little bit closer into the software side of things. So I don't really have an Android, so I don't have Android screenshots. It's pretty much the same for the most part, but basically once you connect to a LoRa radio or a Meshtastic radio with your Bluetooth device, one of the many things is that, down here in the center, you have nodes. So you can get a list of all the nodes that you are seeing. And the longer you have your LoRa radio turned on, your Meshtastic device turned on, the more it just slowly starts collecting all the other nodes that it's seeing. So this becomes quite the list after a while. For example, on the frequency slot 51, they have 4 different channels. So I had to get my head wrapped around this at first. The channels are actually still on the same frequency. You're not changing frequencies when you add channels, but you can add up to, I think it's 8 individual channels inside of each frequency slot. So frequency slot 51, that's the default for frequency slot, but they also have what they call a BBB alerts channel. They also have this DC 801 and a SaintCon. I haven't really seen anything ever being used on the last 2, but the BBB alerts sometimes has like, it just has some general weather alerts that come across, that kind of thing. I don't know if they're supposed to happen every day because I'm not seeing them every day, but every once in a while I will see an update there. Most of the traffic is just on the default.
So they use the same frequency. It's like a TDM?
TDM?
Time domain?
No, there's no time slicing or anything. It's just when the packet's coming, it's just there's just information in there to kind of say, oh, this is for channel 1. Because as far as Meshtastic is concerned, it's channels 0, 1, 2, 3. And so it's just like, which channel is it? And then what's the message for it?
They'll still collide with each other if they're sent at the same time.
Yeah.
SaintCon was mainly active during the convention.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see if Utah DCC does a Meshtastic test. It'll be kind of interesting. Anyway, so apps that you can if you're on the Apple world, there's actually an iOS device, obviously, so you can put it on your tablet, you can put it on your iPhone, but you can also put it on Mac OS itself. So that's actually, I kind of really like having Meshtastic right there on my desktop. I just Bluetooth connect to the device there, and boom, I can just use my normal mouse keyboard and just kind of feels like I'm using Messenger. It's just Meshtastic app instead. They got the Android app. And then on top of that, if you use the Wi-Fi mode, or even if you don't use the Wi-Fi mode, let's say you're a Linux guy or whatever else, well, you can go to client.meshtastic.org. As long as you're using a Chrome-based browser, you can connect to your LoRa via Bluetooth. Okay, yeah, you have to make sure your computer does Bluetooth, but in this day of age, they all better do it. And then it just comes up with like a web interface. It needs a little bit of work, I'll be honest, but I'm sure that will be addressed at some point. But you can use the web interface. You can do most of the setting changes. I say that with a little bit of hesitation because I was recently doing some setting changes and I could do everything but like one thing. So I had to disconnect from the web browser and get my phone out and connect to it to do that one change and then to go back to the web browser. It was kind of annoying, but I'm sure that will get fixed because, like I say, they've been making improvements hand over fist on there. Additionally, if you're really crazy, you can install like a Python thing and all this other stuff, and you can get a full command line access to your Meshtastic device and do things on command line. You can do setting changes, all this kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of information on this on the actual Meshtastic documents page. So none of this is like a mystery. All of this is all spelled out. But you got a number of ways of doing it. So other than that, I just thought I'd bring out the Meshtastic website itself. You just go to meshtastic.org. This is what you're going to get. Mainly, the only two things you're really going to care about are the docs and the downloads. That's pretty much it. The docs starts right off. It kind of starts at that one diagram that I had several slides back, but it's all kind of breadcrumbed on the side. You can go pretty much right to what you're looking for, or you can just read it top to bottom if you want. Again, this is updated rapidly. So whenever they come up with the new features, they get it in the documentation. If you go to the downloads section, you'll basically kind of see this. You'll see kind of a breakdown of where the firmware is, what's the current stable, what's the current alpha or weekly or daily build, whatever you want to call it. Or bleeding edge for those command line people that like to
Actually call it bleeding.
yeah, they actually call it bleeding. So you got to see just some quick reference links to go to the Apple App Store or the Droid Store or whatever to download whatever client you want to use it on. The main two things are the two top ones. Now the whiz block or the rack, believe it or not, you don't really need the web flasher for it. You turn I can't remember what it's called, DFI mode, I think is what it's called. You just turn that on, and all of a sudden you have a D drive on your computer. You just drag the file to it, and then boom, it reboots, and you're on the new version. It's pretty slick. But for most of the other stuff, you click on the flasher. Again, you want a Chrome-based browser for this to work. If you don't have a Chrome-based browser, it just won't work. But the nice thing is that the first thing it asks you is, hey, what is the device you want to do? And it's really nice. It not only just gives you the name, it gives you a nice picture. There's almost impossible to get that mixed up from whatever you have to that. So you click on what you want. You'll notice then in the center, you can actually choose which build you want to do. And after that, you hit the flash. It comes up. It usually gives you a really quick kind of change log, what's changed in this version, that kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the actual, okay, choose your baud rate, all this kind of stuff, because now it's going to connect, make a COM port connection to the LoRa radio, and you can start your update. Now you can have the option to just do a full erase and reinstall. That's always nice. Every once in a while, that has to happen anyway. The other nice thing is that for devices such as this, there's now the Meshtastic UI. You can, I don't know why you would, but you can just say, no, I don't want that Meshtastic UI. I just want the firmware. But then I'm connecting my cell phone to my BlackBerry throwback. So I'm going to use Meshtastic UI because then I can do everything I pretty much want to do. Again, they've done a really good job with that UI. Other than that, see, I think I've already mentioned it. The default is frequency slot 20. That's how it comes out of the box, or whenever you do a factory reset, that's where it starts. The Intermountain Mesh is frequency slot 51. The nice thing about that is that they have a website, freak51.net. They have a lot of documentation there. They also have their own Discord server. It gives you information on how to get to the Discord server. They have a lot of really great people on there. You run into any kind of problems, you ask a question in there, you usually get like 20 answers. and most of them are right even. That's always nice. Now, I was kind of showing a couple of slides back how the software showed all the nodes. In the software is also a map. And anyone who actually has a GPS, or anyone who actually, if you don't have a GPS device, you can say use the GPS off of my phone, for example, or you can hard code in a GPS if you want. So anyone who's actually done that, this just kind of gives you an example. And this is, I just kind of loaded it up and did a screenshot. So as you can see, it's, getting up in the South Ogden down to, Lake Mountain-ish area. If I left that on a little bit longer, that would have been more complete, but it's just demo purposes in this case. I'm often reading Meshtastic articles, and this guy, I can't remember who he was now, but this guy built a number of these little LoRa devices into this little rectangular box. These are all cell panels on here. And he's got a good sized battery in there, and he just hangs them up into trees in his neighborhood. And they're just sitting there being on the mesh network the whole time. And he just kind of forgets that they're there, because they're all, the only time he has to bring them down is if there's a significant change to the Meshtastic firmware that now maybe he has to go and grab them to plug them into the USB and then do a firmware flash. But
or if the birds take out his solar generation.
Yeah, exactly.
So that generates enough power in some winter and all that kind of stuff too.
Yep. As long as you have basically a 5-watt panel, then you'll have enough excess to charge the battery and to get it up and everything.
Ken is running that. Is that Ken's, or is that just
No. This is just some guy I saw on some article. But I did want to bring out Ken, because Ken W7PKA, he went a little bit crazy. So he got a Raspberry Pi and connected it to a LoRa radio, and he made it BBS. And it's really kind of cool, because if you know the node of his, I think he just calls it BBS or Ken BBS or something like that. If you send a direct message to his BBS and say like hi or hello, I can't remember what the keyword is, it comes back to you with a menu response. And then you like one. And so you can actually post announcements in there. You can actually post a message base, like a message board in there, all these kind of things. He really did a pretty clever job on that. If you're really nice to him, maybe he can come out and show you how he did it. But I had fun playing with this little BBS there for a while. That was
it's really the way to go, because otherwise, if you're not online, you don't get the messages, right? So
right.
You can post them and check them.
Yeah, you could post a couple of messages. Murray's got food, go raid Murray, and then everyone's trying, I haven't checked my mesh Murray's got food, let's go to Murray. Exactly. And just to finalize this off a little bit, and hey, look at that, right on the 1 hour mark even. These are some other pictures that I kind of like from Meshtastic articles that I've read, except for this one is mine. My Meshtastic device is down here at the bottom, and I put my 900 megahertz antenna up here on top. This is the same mast that I use for my FM radio and my HD TV. That's what the other two antennas are. So this is not the best placement for a solar panel, but I've had it up for almost a full year, and I've almost never gone under 70% on my battery usage. And that's been like a week of like, are we ever going to see sun again? Again, it was that whiz block I custom made. Just the bare bones. There's no monitor in there. There's no nothing. It's just the radio. It does Bluetooth. There's no GPS. I actually hard code in the GPS location for it. I don't know how long it could last, but I went through a week of total cloudiness, and when I saw that I was only at 70%, I thought, okay, cool. This should last for a while. The only problem that I have seen is that lithium ion has a temperature range that it likes. And when you fall outside of that temperature range, sometimes your node goes offline. So I've only seen that on the cold side of it. I've not seen that on the hot side of it. I got through all the summer without it resetting, but I've now had it reset twice when it got really cold.
Does it reboot or it's like offline for a while?
It basically rebooted.
Oh.
For as far as I can tell, I mean, there are some logs that you can kind of dig through on this device when you get into it. Again, that it could be another conversation, but there are logs you can kind of get into it, and yeah, you can kind of see, oh yeah, it rebooted.
So it wasn't like down for a week or something?
No, it was down for a few hours, and it was like, because it went down in the middle of the night, because it was so cold in the middle of the night that it just went down. But as soon as the sun came out and warmed it up again, boom, it just came right back.
Lithium batteries that have protection circuits will stop charging when it gets down to 40 degrees or colder, because you're not supposed to charge them at freezing or below, or they'll do damage.
Right.
So it may have gotten to that point.
Yeah, possible.
Why does that antenna look so big? I mean, aren't they normally like about this size?
Because I got a bigger antenna.
Maybe is that?
He's compensated. Somebody said
That antenna is available off the shelf relatively cheap, and they're designed for the people who use LoRa for helium mining,
Yeah,
if you know what that is.
yeah.
I mean, how big is that? It's quite big. I mean,
18 inches.
A foot or so, maybe 18 inches.
Oh.
The photo makes it look bigger than it really is.
I'm just imagining that's so much bigger.
I mean, it's 900 megahertz. It's 33 centimeters, so you don't need a lot of, you know.
Just looking like a 2-3 foot antenna. Maybe not. Okay. So it's
I mean, it could be a multi-phase antenna inside there. I don't know. I didn't want to crack the fiberglass and find out and break the waterproof seal. So, but I just saw it. It's really, like Paul said, it's pretty cheap. It's made specifically for the LoRa radios. So I just said, you know what, fine. I'm just going to put it up there. So yeah, if you join frequency, if you get a LoRa device, if you get on Meshtastic, if you go to and decide to join the frequency slot 51 people, if you look out there and you find Granite Solar, that's me. Granite Base is my unit in the basement.
So where's that other one?
That other one, I don't know. It was just in an article where some guy was talking about bridging two valleys together. And so he went up some ridge line and he just stuck it in the ground. I don't know if someone would get a little ornery if they saw that or not, but.
Well, if you can find a landowner who is friendly,
right,
they'll let you do it if you explain to them what it is. A lot of times they're put up on like Park Service or BLM land. That's kind of a no-no.
Yeah, yeah.
They will give it back to you, but once they know who you are, consequences may follow.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Maybe another reason not to be in license mode, where your call sign has to be part of the long name. And a nice cryptic name like Mountaintop 001, you know.
Well, that's not as bad as the GMRS repeaters that people are building into ammo cans and putting up on property where we don't have permission. That's a thing now.
Yeah, that is been, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's my presentation, unless there's any questions.
I've been impressed with the distance you can get on LoRa. You know, it's basically better than our newest Wi-Fi stuff, which is higher frequency, and you can. So I can hit in my little HOA problem. I can hit several now that are kind of rooftop mounted that I otherwise couldn't hit with Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I've noticed with this amplifier thing, it's got a little amplifier and an LED in it, and it really gives you an incredible range. I mean, I didn't even have a good antenna. I wasn't even outside. I had it sitting in the window inside my house. I'm just connecting to people all over the valley. Obviously, you need to be in ammo to transmit with that, but even just the LED on the receive side really gives you quite a few dB. I forget what it was, but it was a massive boost in the receive as well.
Well, an antenna that's outside the structure of your home is way better than any amplifier.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Makes a
sure.
huge difference.
But if you had a proper setup like this, I'm sure, yeah, it probably would.
And it still is kind of a tool in search of a problem to solve. But I think, the emergency communication stuff, when you get the $10 versions, everybody can have one of those. And when you have your phone, so when the grid goes down, you still have your local neighborhood sort of stuff. So it's going to evolve into the next version of the pager, Raspberry, or.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the reason I was like showing that what Spec 5 was doing, right? Because now they're taking just a simple, ordinary FRS radio that, and then they're saying, oh, well, let's go ahead and throw GPS and text messaging on it too.
Hey,
Just a little quick comment. I know you guys know it, but it is icy out there. We ran some salt, some snow melt and stuff, but just please be careful. And then whoever's in the center of the parking lot, they parked their little car there. Just remember, just to let you know, that's not a parking stall, just to kind of keep it on the side, but please be careful. The chief's asked me to come in and make sure I tell you guys. So
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
You guys have a good night.
All right, Dan, how is the door prize going to work? I got two of these little lower radios that I'm going to give
I'm
away.
gonna turn the time over to Jeff. He's going to explain that.
Okay.
First of all, thank you very much for.
It's gonna be a death match, right?